Okie dokie. Alright, it's all finished now. Now we're going to start painting. Okay, first off we're going to do is we're going to paint these feathers, their base color, which is white. Those are going to be eagle feathers. We're going to squeeze out a little here. Alright, I'm just going to let those set aside and dry. Those over here somewhere. So we're going to set that aside because we don't want to get any paint on it. So like most of you know, I paint wet. In other words, I soak everything down wet. Just with plain old water. Set that aside for a while. Now the colors we're going to use for flesh tones are going to be, well, not that one. Red iron oxide, okay? I use these colors, these three colors for all my figures that I paint. Red iron oxide. This is, it says antique gold, but it's yellow ochre. You can use antique gold, but it's really yellow ochre. And this is asphaltum, which is a real rich brown. Excellent brown. So first I'm going to squeeze me out some red iron oxide. I'm just about out of painting this thing, that's why I've got it turned upside down. Put me out some yellow ochre, don't need too much of that. Set that back there. That'll come off of there. It's dirty paint, dried out paint. Squeeze me out a little bit of brown there. Don't take much of that. Get my brush real clean. I don't want any white in this. One thing about flesh color of flesh. I see this on these wood carving Facebook pages and blogs and just about anywhere. People grab white and then they'll grab red and they expect to hit a flesh tone. They're not going to do it. It's never going to happen. Look at your hand. Is that white? Do you see any of those two colors in my hand? A little bit of the red color is there, but you don't see any of that. You see a little bit of that yellow ochre in there. And there's a little bit of that brown in there, probably a little bit more than there should be. Oops, my hand's dirty. But that is not a flesh color. Maybe if some lady got makeup on, some Japanese kabuki dancers or something like that, they might have some white makeup on, but that's about as close as you're ever going to get. You're never going to get a flesh color with white paint. So anyway, and another thing you have to remember, look at the color of this this wood, wet. Okay, that's a color you have to take into consideration on when you do painting, especially painting like I do. Now, if you're going to slather on some of this, you know, you went down and you bought to Hobby Lobby and you bought a bottle of flesh color paint like this, light portrait pink. Now, I have never seen a portrait of anybody painted with this color. It's just if someone showed up at my place with this color, you know, on their face or whatever, I think I'd suggest they go down to the emergency ward because something's definitely wrong with them. But anyway, this is sort of a real light yellow ochre right here. So anyway, we got to take that in consideration. Be sure I got all that paint on my brush. I'm going to kind of wash it out here with some brush soap. Well, I need me some new brushes. These old ones. This brush is about 20 years old. One of my favorite brushes, but it's just about to give up the ghost, and I'm going to have to get me some new ones. Soap out of there. But it's a good brush. I've painted a lot of pictures, a lot of carvings with that brush. All right, get me some red out of here. Give me some yellow ochre. And for an Indian, I'm going to put a little brown in there. See how that works. Rinse out my brush again. I don't want too much paint on there. Yeah, that looks good. You see, I paint on a piece of glass, and underneath that is just white, so I can look down through those washes. They're not sitting on the surface of something. Underneath there's white, so I can see down through them. It's transparent. I can see what's happening there. So I'm going to put that on there. Looks a little red to me. Let's start with that there. Looks a little light maybe, but we can always come back and correct that. And I just flood the whole areas. Yep, a little white. Light, I mean. I'm not concerned about getting it on the black, the color of the hair, because black will cover up red. Now I'm going to have to mix me up some more here. Thought I had enough, but I didn't. There we go, that's a good one. You see, because the wood is wet, all the paint is moving easily from one area into the next. I don't end up with some hard color lines because the paint might be a little bit different from one brush application to the next, which is important. Should be going good and coated. There's a spot down in there, don't want to take any paint. Get down there. Okay. Now see the areas like this right here, that's on the flat area of the wood. And there's hardly any grain there, or the end of the grain. It's more or less flat, like my hand, to where these areas close to it are more like this. It's catching the end grain of the wood. That's why there's not much paint sticking to this area as there is to these areas up here. So you kind of have to always take these things into consideration when you're painting. Again, if you're painting like I paint, because if you're slopping on a bunch of flesh-colored paint, you don't have to worry about that stuff, which could be one of the reasons why people use that stuff. Alright, got a nice even coat on him all over. So, another brush here. This time I'm going to take straight red-on oxide, and I'm going to put some sunshine on his face. Right here. And right there. And on his nose, because that catches sun. A little bit more, because the nose really catches sun. But generally it's just his upper cheeks. And his nose. And I'll pick up a little bit of that flesh color down here with a little bit more red. And I'll paint that lip. And right there on the end of his nose, again, is a situation like that right there. So you have to take that into consideration. Kind of touch it up. And everything's wet now too. You can come back after the figure dries, face dries, or whatever you paint, and you can touch up these spots real carefully. Now I'm going to get me some, not that color, not that color, some midnight blue. Beautiful color. And make sure when you buy these colors, here's another midnight blue here. Deep midnight blue. Midnight blue. When I go buy colors, when I'm in Hobby Lobby or someplace, I always open them up and I look at them. See the difference in those colors? Hopefully you can see it. This one has some white in it. Well, I don't want that. I want something. And even though this says deep midnight blue, it's actually lighter color than just midnight blue over here. So it's always a good idea to open up those paint containers and take a look at it. That's why this one's sitting right here on the shelf, and this one's out here where I can use it. So I'm going to put me up. A little drop. And that is way, way, way too much of what I'm going to do with it. So I'm going to just touch my brush, just barely touch it in there. Clean my brush out. Just keep thinning it out. What I'm going to do with it is I'm going to shade the eyes. See the difference between the two of them there? Now I'm going to take a little more, and in this area right in here, I'm going to put some blue in there. It just shows you how little color changes everything. When I put that blue on there, what I actually did there is I washed away some of the red as I applied the blue, which is what I want. If I wanted to, I could go back and I could put some red back in there. But then if I did that, I'd end up washing away some of my blue, so I'll put my blue back in there. There, he looks pretty good. Put a little more right on these nose there. Okay. Now again, you saw how much blue I used there. There's a little bit of tail of it coming out there, and then I just washed it all out. And you can see the dramatic effect it had on that face. That's what I love about painting. Now, if this was a cowboy's face, I wouldn't have used any brown. The red on oxide and the yellow ochre would have been plenty to make the flesh color of a cowboy. I still would have put the blue around the lower part of his face, probably a little heavier to indicate a 5 o'clock shadow. But anyway, now we're going to work in the hair. Now for black, I don't use black. I use a color, it's called licorice. It's a richer black than black. It also has a little bit of, I guess you could say white, probably gray in it. Not very much, just a teensy-weensy bit. But what happened when they put that in there is it made this color opaque, which means it's solid. Light doesn't shine through it so much. Where black by itself is a transparent color. So all the wood would show through if I use black. But by using this, it cuts that down and gives a better effect of what I'm after. Squeeze out a bunch of that there. A small brush here. Put on my cheap $3 glasses I get down at the dollar store. These have 3-power magnification to them. They're certainly better than that thing you put over your head and you look through. These work a heck of a lot better, and it's certainly cheaper than the other kind. So what I do first is just carefully outline my hair. And I'm putting that black on there almost straight, just with a little bit of water added to it. And I'd need some new brushes. So I'm going to continue doing this. Otherwise, the video will be several hours long. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to outline the whole thing, and then I'll come back and paint what's in the middle. Okay? So I'll be back here in a little bit. Okay, back again. I've outlined all the areas where separation is, and I've also went and washed my hands because I had got some paint on them, and I've attached me a little holder here so I won't get my hands dirty again. And I'm just putting all the paint on here. And when you're painting, down like I always bring your brush up and go into the areas that have been painted so everything's tied together. Don't touch that face. Where did all those things come from? My old friend used to call them holidays. I don't know. I don't know why he called them that. But little white spots that show up after you've painted it. They always show up. You just have to always look for them. Okay. Now for his eyebrows. Get the brush really clean here and dry. Oh, Judy, don't hit me in the head with that camera. Sure they're even enough. That looks pretty good. Now you can see, I don't know if you remember how harsh the burn lines looked before we painted it. Now they don't seem to look so harsh, but they do show up to start doing the effect that I intended. They deepen the shadows in these areas. It's starting to dry out here, that's why it's getting lighter. Pull back a little, your shadow. Okay? So he's looking pretty good. We'll have to come back once the head's dry again and I can look at it and wet it down again and retouch these areas where it's light, maybe. You know, I just have to wait till it dries out. So I think that's going to about do it for this video. In the next video, we'll continue working on the head and hopefully get those feathers taken care of too. So until then, I'll talk to you later.